I'm just hopping on here to talk about a couple of things. The people that wanted me to play a couple of different MMOs. I did inspect some of those, but I'm probably gonna stick with the ones that are on my radar currently. Um, Second deal was we did that video. Like I made that new Mesmer, went in to do the expansion for Guild Wars 2, and I played that one Mesmer build through it. It was literally I made a Mesmer, I boosted it, I bought Berserker gear, I put every damage, crit, and illusion damage bonus on it, and tried to play through that. And people sent me comments talking about how, what are you doing? That's not how you play Mesmer. Go get these builds off of the internet and copy paste these other ones because they're way better and do more damage and stuff while you're using auto attack on your great sword. Um, y'all guys posting those? That's the problem with Guild Wars 2. Like literally, y'all are the problem in Guild Wars 2. Okay, I made a Mesmer. I put a very basic build on it with very basic guild skills, and I was going through a story, like a single player storyline. There wasn't any reason for me to go super hardcore in my build or anything like that. It wasn't needed. It's not needed. Not a big deal. But for some reason, people just always pressure these super intense builds. You have to realize that, like, I have mesmers and stuff, but I haven't touched those classes since launch, really. Like, I hop on them and I mess around every now and then, but I don't know anything really about the class. I don't bother with it. Um, so just the expansion getting me to play that class in the first place is a was pretty interesting and kind of a big deal to me. But I have no interest of just creating a new class for the first time and however and playing it and then just instantly going onto the internet and copy pasting a build and then never touching my character again. I theory craft builds. I like making my own stuff. Me going and copy pasting a build will literally just make me not play. Like I just won't play the game. Um, so I just don't understand that kind of process. Y'all are players that probably came from other MMO type games, but Guild Wars has never been about that min maxy stuff. And somehow it's seeped into Guild Wars too. But a second thing with that is we did talk to some people the other day about a Mesmer idea that I had. But then every single Mesmer I talked to, it never even crossed their mind. Um, I guess because no one's tried to run it because it's not a meta build. But basically, I was just looking at the skill traits and stuff, and I'm like fairly sure that you can almost get infinite taunt on Mesmers. And I was looking at this because basically there's a defensive trait line on on the Mesmer that when you block or evade or whatever, I think it's block or evade, but it might just be block. You make a Phantasmal Defender and it has a 40-second cooldown. Well, then you can have Phantasmal Defender on your skill bar, which has a 40-second cooldown, and then you can use Mimic to make two Phantasmal Defenders with that skill, and then you have a heal skill that can recharge your Phantasms. Probably won't work on the trait, but you at least get another Phantasmal Defender there. And then from what we've noticed is that if you boost your condition duration, um, you can get that up to at least 5 seconds, probably more. So that's already like 20 seconds out of a 40-second cooldown. And then you go Chronomancer, then you can go and reduce the cooldown on all your abilities and get Alacrity and stuff and like reduce that cooldown probably like 30 seconds or something. But then on top of that, you have that time distortion, so you'd be able to reset all of your skills again. But you're either going to be able to almost get infinite or there might be a slight delay. But even if you get 40 seconds or like 30 seconds of like AoE taunt, it's kind of interesting to me, um, just how that might work. because that's a long time to have involuntary attacks on targets. But the other thing is that we've watched some videos of basically the top of the line Guild Wars 2 streamers, the in-game be all big time Guild Wars 2 streamers talking about the relic system and all of that. And if anyone's been on here before, you know that like I posted stuff on Reddit about things like that in the past. Um, kind of suggestions like a while back, and it tanked my reputation on Reddit because nobody liked the idea. But that's pretty much the idea that was in the game was those relic systems. Well, those top of the end streamers are now talking about how like some of those relics are useless, and the Pitha ruin is like, or the Pitha relic is the one that people are talking about like right now, I guess. And basically, it's like whenever you shadow step, or I guess use a deception skill, I think it's probably shadow step, you throw a dagger that inflicts torment or whatever, and then you get 4 seconds of a 10% damage bonus. Um, and people are talking about that, basically saying that it doesn't really have a purpose, I guess, or because it's hybrid damage, um, it's not as good or something. But I think it's perfectly fine when I'm thinking about it, because a lot of them are talking about how like it'd be used on a thief, and they don't understand how it'd be used on a thief. But I kind of see that just the basic idea in my head, if you're going to do that on a thief, is that if you're doing a deception and visibility focused thief, most people wear like assassin's gear or something on their character, right? So if you do assassin's gear, you're doing 100% crit, and 100% crit is fine, but that's for like DPS. Now, if you don't build any crit on your assassin, you could potentially do like power, ferocity, condition damage, or condition duration. And then from there, there's a trait line inside of the thief skills that every time that you go invisible, you get 100% crit on your next attack. So if you have two sets of weapons and then you have 100% crit when you're invisible, then you should be able to get crit sigils and be able to get 4 to 5 seconds of crit on your character. And then the Pitha ruins are giving you 4 seconds of 10% damage bonus. So I'm pretty sure what you're trying to do is make a thief that goes invisible, and then you backstab or whatever your targets, you hit them with a bunch of damage for 4 seconds. And while you're doing that, you're going to be applying a bunch of bleeding or poison, a series of conditions to your target, and then you go invisible again. And then, so basically, what you're trying to do is spike someone's health down and then kill them off with your conditions, or make sure that they're not able to really fully heal back up with your conditions there, like especially poison. And then essentially you just be going invisible and letting your conditions kind of whittle them down, and then going in for another backstab. So instead of it just being constant damage, 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 it's going to be more strategic invisibility, going, hitting damage, invisibility, going, hitting damage. Um, as the weapon swaps are like 9 seconds, I guess potentially you could try and reduce that somehow, but 9 seconds on a weapon swap, and then getting 3 seconds or 4 seconds of crit on swap, and then the 1 or 2 seconds that you get for the invisible. It might just be one auto, but even then it's just a backstab. So you're looking at, you know, 4 to 5 seconds of crit on a 9 second cooldown on a thief that can just go invisible or disappear or whatever you want. And then on top of that, if you do condition duration, you could run things like the chill poison that gives you know, chill to targets, and then run disrupting dagger. Because at that point you'd be able to, say if you're playing against an elementalist or a mesmer or something that has a lot of skill rotations, you can chill them to slow their skills and abilities down, and then your disrupting dagger is going to add an additional 10 seconds on their recharge. So even my warrior, for example, you might not be able to interrupt their skills with the disrupting dagger naturally, but the chill will slow down my warrior's abilities. And then the disrupting dagger might be able to interrupt some of those skills with chill active, which would be kind of a big deal. Like say even DPS warriors, for instance, like whirl or that rush ability, their movement skills. If you could interrupt those, it would put them in a really bad spot against a highly mobile assassin. Um, so stuff like that I think is like really simple, really easy to do. But I guess most people that do MMO type games are it's all like DPS and boons and utilities and stuff, but they don't think about like well-rounded builds where my idea for like a good build in most MMO type games is just something that could be really good in like PvP situational like PvP environments. And then still good in the open world game. That being said, the people that are wanting me to play, buy and play New World and buy and play Ashes of Creation. Um, Here's the thing. Okay, they've been on the fringe. I've been watching them for a while, but as far as I can tell, they're not really my type of game. Uh, Graphically, I'm sure they look really nice. I see a lot of promise in what they do. There's a lot of things in there that I've wanted in games, but both of them seem to be very grindy to me, which is something I don't really feel like doing at the moment. And then the combat in the games is very blocky. So it's not fluid, it doesn't feel super good. And then like New World I was tempted to play New World because the armors look good, the mechanics and stuff are all right, but they do the classic, tank, DPS, healer sort of thing. And usually my kind of characters are more tank focused. Like I do tank with enough damage to kill people or something along those lines. And but I don't see it being very flashy in that game. Like I watched some tank players running around. I mean, they swing their hammers and stuff a little bit. The shields and stuff look a little weird on the character models. Um, you know, and I'm sure it's probably a good game. I like the quest mechanic stuff that they have in those games that they were doing. I think those are pretty interesting. The way they have the settlements and stuff working look like they're going to be pretty interesting. But it's the same way of like World of Warcraft was a big game for MMOs and still is, and they just now revamped World of Warcraft to where they're adding new content and stuff again. But I didn't play that game a long time ago because one, subscription fees, and two, it's super grindy, and then the animations and stuff kind of looked weird to me. Um, so even if it is a good game, it's not my kind of game because I'm not going to play World of Warcraft. I mean, it's just I don't think I would enjoy that kind of game. So New World, I probably doubt that I will because I've seen their gathering materials, crafting, all that stuff. You have to level everything up to like 250 points. It's gonna take forever just to like do a few of those, and then you're gonna have to grind all the dungeons to get your gear and your gear value and all that stuff works. And there's gonna be builds. It's gonna have to be meta builds probably to get groups, and then the skills aren't super flashy or anything like that. So like you might as well play a mage or something. Um, so yeah, I just don't think they're my thing. Now, what is on my radar right now for MMO games? As you can see, I'm still in Guild Wars 2. Because I think Guild Wars 2 has, kind of turned a corner and is going to start pumping out some better stuff. The next thing is, someone almost got me to try Diablo again, but I'm really, I don't think I'm going to. Although they have like a remastered Diablo 2 or something. Diablo 2 and all that I used to play a lot of like a long time ago. But PAX Day is one that I'm looking at right now. Uh the one thing that I'm iffy on with PAX Day is it's a player built world, which it can have issues if the player base isn't there, and then depending on what people do, it can have issues. Other than that, The graphics and stuff look like it's gonna have potential. The game design and stuff looks really nice. It also isn't super high fantasy, like a lot of other games. So instead of it just being like people throwing spells everywhere and wizards casting stuff, the spells are gonna be more unique, things like that. Items and stuff are gonna have puzzles and things that you need to figure out and solve. From what they said, like boss fights and stuff in that game, it's more like if you run into a dragon or a basilisk, it isn't going to be like, oh, let's fight that dragon or basilisk, and then you're DPSing it. It's going to be like you don't know if you can actually kill a dragon or a basilisk. You need to figure out how you kill it in game. So you can look at mythology or something. And a basilisk, for instance, they have those in Guild Wars 1, like in starting zones and stuff, and you just hit them with your stick and it dies and you're good. From what I'm reading mythology wise, is the basilisk is weak to seeing its own reflection. Um, it's weak to weasels, and they don't like the sound of crowing roosters. So it's kind of different. It's like a twist to it. I like the idea of having monsters that require challenges because, especially in a game like I also have started writing a little bit of a story or book for my first character in a game that I want to make eventually, and I'm calling him the Fallen right now. But if I ever built a game, I would want a system that kind of isn't super complicated, but changes the gameplay in a way where like bots and players wouldn't like bot players wouldn't be able to farm things very easily. And in my head, I would use like an elemental type system, like water, fire, lightning, and then each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses and helps get around armor and stuff with certain things. So if you don't use a specific type of damage or have extra weapons or something with that kind of damage, you wouldn't be able to do as much damage to the creatures, which would then affect your farming rates and all of that, or maybe even your potential to die. Like I just don't think having a character that's able to sit still in one spot and just AFK to farm stuff is okay. And there has to be a lot more solutions than just going around and manually banning them. Like I don't think it would be that complicated to stop some of this stuff. Because I mean, otherwise they're gonna have to like the bots are basically gonna have to like register their DPS and then swap in between multiple weapons and gears and sit there and figure out what does the highest DPS and what they're targeting and what abilities it's using and then kill it that way. But I think that's also why durability would be good. So if I make a game, it'd be a survival game more than just a standard MMO. And durability would and ammunition and stuff would be kind of part of that, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, that's why I'm thinking PAX Day. I still signed up for the alpha test. I want to try and test that game out and just kind of see what I think about it. But it's definitely on my radar. I'm putting it above New World and stuff because it does have that open world, build your own kingdom stuff. So I like building in games. Um, so I wouldn't mind being able to build my own stuff, even if there is limits to it. And then just the world itself seems kind of interesting with the puzzles and items that you find have like engravings and stuff. You got to figure out what it does, where it goes, stuff like that. Could be really confusing, but also I think there's a lot of potential content maybe I could make over there, and I like the armor style and stuff, even though it's New World has that Roman armor, and I really kind of liked that, but PAX Day is gonna have more medieval focus, so I'm fine with that. Um, the only other like MMO type game that I've really been looking at for a long time is still Star Citizen, and I know some people are gonna be rolling their eyes still, but I think I have a pretty good track record of backing games that have very good potential. I can't really think of much that I've missed over the years. Like I haven't really. bought anything that I regret or just wouldn't play. Um, so Star Citizen, I backed, I don't know, like probably 10 years ago by now. But when I back into stuff like this, like I see the potential, I kind of weigh the options, and I thought it was worth the backing. And now it's starting to come to fruition. So Squadron 42 is entering polishing phase. That's the single player version of their game. So as long as my account and stuff is still all good, we should be able to get access to the single player game, and we should be able to get access to the multiplayer game. So I would assume at this point, if they have all the features and everything and no changes to the single player and they're just polishing everything out and getting all the details done, I'll give them another couple of years probably to get that done and finished. And then from there, finalizing stuff for the open universe, I think, is going to be a good point. Like, I feel like they're going to give you enough time to play. I think in their mind, releasing the single player game is going to be like a big advertisement for the online game. And if they make the single player game really, really good and high quality and very replayable and stuff like that, it's going to draw people in like something like Skyrim. And then by the time they release their actual game, like basically when they release that game, not only would people buy Squadron 42 for a single player game to play it and test it, um, it'll also be a single player thing that you can like probably practice your flying and all the basic mechanics, like a tutorial for the online game, I would assume. And then people are going to be playing that and then learn about Star Citizen, and it's going to give them a whole nother wave of funding, I'm sure, again, for that open universe. Because they still have a lot of work to do in the open universe, but also I believe they showed off some server meshing recently, so they're finally making like a lot of progress on that, which is very important and good. So even like after Star Citizen is said and done and finished, the engine and the tech that they've developed for Star Citizen is going to be really, really, really good, probably for many other types of games. So even if after they get done with this game, they're going to have all that tech still sitting around to make more games or rent out and sell to other people. I feel like that's how they're probably going to help fund their universe, most likely. But that engine, I don't know if they're allowing other people to use it or not for a while. Um, but yeah, that's probably the next big one that I would go to. And Star Citizen's basically, um, in my head, it's gonna be like probably one of the final big games that I buy for a while. And I've already bought and backed it for a long time. So in my head, though, it's like a mixture of it's like MMO with Battlefield with like Halo. Like those three kind of together is how I'm picturing it a bit. Like I don't really know how well their quest system and stuff's gonna be. Like I just don't see them putting like a bunch of interesting kind of quests in that game, especially with like their dev people being like a lot older and stuff as well. And since they put so much focus on realism, it's probably gonna be like very kind of like Battlefield-esque type missions, like hostage rescue or getting supplies or killing a bunch of stuff or whatever. But I mean, that's the same sort of stuff like Halo did. Like, and Halo was a fun game. I'm fine with that. So, plus you have all the player interaction and everything else, and I kind of want to be in the middle of the law. So, I don't know exactly how all that's going to work, but eventually we'll get back onto Star Citizen. I still have my account. I just haven't played on there in a long time. I don't know any of the controls or what all they did, but I have kept up with updates and stuff like that. I check in every now and then. Um, So really, it's the PAX Day Alpha and then the Star Citizen are probably the two type of MMO games that are just on the radar with me, like in the next however long it takes. Squadron 42 is going to be played, but I don't see me putting time into New World or Ashes of Creation right now. Um, until I see, I think they would need some like changes to their combat system because it doesn't look super fun to me right now. And like their raids and boss battles, like raids and boss battles are fine, but I've never really most games that I played with like raids and stuff, like you go in there and you get to the boss and it's just you stack up and then you just remember the boss mechanics and everyone gets like super stressed and oh your build isn't like you're 1,000 DPS off of max DPS and they kick you from the group and stuff. I don't really want to deal with all that. So Guild Wars 2 is still up there for me right now for most of that. Survival games I still like. So Scum still getting updates and stuff. We still gonna go play Scum, um, and all of that. But yeah, it's kind of the gist. But the people in Guild Wars 2 that are just like, I don't know what the deal is with y'all, the copy paste meta build stuff going on, but y'all are trying to like make these max DPS, max whatever builds, and then you're wanting every single weapon and every single combination and every single race and profession to be able to compete in your high end meta team comps. It's not going to happen because no matter what you do, unless you give everything just a flat amount of damage or something, there's always going to be a best build. So, like, by the very nature of what you do in game and how you play the game, you are not going to be able to play every single profession and class and stuff as your character. It's not going to happen. There's always going to be a best, and if you're trying to min max it, that's about it. You can get things close, but then there's still going to be a best build. So not every single relic, not every single ruin, not every single armor, or every single build and profession needs to be forced into a way that makes it a high-end meta in-game build. For the same reason, your high-end meta in-game builds, or even your like high-end PvP builds and stuff, they don't always do so well against some of these lower tier builds. Like even if you're high DPS and stuff, you can lose to these lower end builds because you're not well rounded. You're super specialized into one role that's going to require you to have an extremely high amount of skill or an extremely experienced team composition with very specialized roles to support you. Whereas the lower tier builds don't require as much skill, don't require as much team support or anything like that. So unless you're like gonna be taking tons of caffeine and trying to like super get into it every single day, I would take an average of the line build against a high end specialized build pretty much any day of the week. Because like you know how you all go in and y'all's meta builds and y'all go in there to fight a raid boss or something, and then one of your people die or whatever, and then the whole raid's over, and then you're like, "Oh my God, you fucking suck," and then you kick them out, and then you wait around, you have to get a replacement, or you just keep redoing the thing. It takes you time to train everybody to do that mission to then play it that way. Whereas like an average of the line build, you can go get however many players with that kind of build, go straight in there and beat the boss. And it's not going to be that big of a deal. You're just not going to be able to farm the boss as quickly. But some people don't want to farm a boss 24/7. That's about how it is. Like the older Guild Wars 2 player, like Guild Wars 1 players and stuff that are in the game, all those guys, they played that game they didn't run like the super high end crazy builds. They actually experimented and created their own custom heroes that had own unique abilities and paths, and they played through the storylines and stuff. The only super serious high end people were like ecto farmers, the people that wanted a bunch of money so that they could say they have a bunch of money. That's about it. Um, so like even in Guild Wars 2, you can go make meta builds and high DPS builds, and y'all can farm the raids, y'all can farm meta events or whatever else, and get a bunch of money. But if you don't have a reason to have a bunch of money, it's just a bunch of money. It doesn't do anything. Like if you're trying to make real world money off of it, okay. If you're trying to like fund guild events or some big guild activities and stuff, I could see that. Because farming gold is super annoying. I did it myself. Um, and that's probably the only time in all of Guild Wars 2 that I was like, I need to make a build that can kind of speed up my farms. And I actually made builds that competed with meta builds during that period because when you're trying to like run a guild and fund stuff and you're paying people gold, like thousands and thousands of gold every week, um, you don't want to waste as much time doing that. But then you burn out because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over. So in Guild Wars 2, even then, what you really want to do is you want to go and farm a bunch of gold, have the gold, and then use the economy and the markets and stuff to turn that gold into more gold. You don't want to sit there and farm it 24/7, um, because there's not any reason. So like you can go like say you go to Silver Waste or whatever and you farm for like 8-10 hours and you make a couple hundred gold. Okay, well now you could just put that couple hundred gold into the market, buy some bags or whatever, um, and then resell them or get materials or whatever at a slightly higher markup and get like 50 gold or 100 gold or something out of it. And it took you no time. You could be doing whatever you want in the game and you're just clicking the buttons. So there's no reason for your meta build anymore. Even with stuff like Ecto or whatever, like you can go around and buy the exotics, break them down into Ecto, resell the Ecto, or at least you used to. There might be changes. And then there's like small things like the bag openers and stuff that's just like you go from making no money to like hundreds and hundreds of gold just because you have a bag opener. That doesn't have anything to do with like your meta farming. Um, you know, it's just some knowledge in the game that doesn't have anything to do with anything. Um, that being said, if you were gonna like meta farm some stuff, I could see you like hopping on and doing a big run and then finishing it and being done for the day. But like doing the same boss or the same raids every single day for years, I couldn't see it. And that's probably why you're begging for in-game content all the time, instead of like story stuff. But I still think the story stuff is like I can replay the storylines more than I can replay a dungeon or something over and over again, you know? And the stories, they're not super in depth yet, because they keep making more in-game dungeons and dragon stuff that I'm fine that we're out of the dragon stuff though, but basically that's just my short talk and all that though. Uh, Now I know if I do get accepted to the alpha for PAX Day, there's always disclosures, like there's always things that you can't like show gameplay footage or anything else like that. But I kind of wonder if I played PAX Day on the alpha, but I didn't show any video footage and I didn't mention the game and I didn't talk crap about it super hard. If I could like record my reactions while playing in the test and kind of like pinpoint some stuff to remember. Because I think that you could potentially like alpha test a game even if they make you sign a disclosure and still give your opinion about it without revealing a bunch of stuff about the game. Because even like Star Citizen or um, like Ark Survival Evolved, all those games that they had like testing that you could do at the very beginning, they just don't want their game to get a bad reputation while like before it even has a chance to like take off. And I understand that. But I think the other thing is, as long as you have the mindset, like you're understanding that, it's test phases and alpha and everything's not perfect, you could still give feedback on, the progress and how well you think the game is based on the alpha stuff without being super harsh about it. Because I don't know, but I think the mechanically and stuff, everything's gonna be there. But that's why, like, even like Ashes of Creation and stuff, and New World, for instance, like I'm still watching them, but I don't have the urge to play them, and they're basically out and everyone's playing it now. But if those were like early phases of the game and all that, like it's still early because they're released and people are playing it, but it's still early in their game. They can change anything they want at any time. But the combat systems and stuff on there, like if they got a little better, I'd probably go in. The shooting, the free aim shooting and stuff, kind of interesting. But server issues and stuff that I've kind of seen or heard about. Um, I don't know if I would want to just like free aim with like a massive multi like MMO game with like free aim shooting. Um, unless they have really good server performance, it'd be kind of a pain. It's the same thing with like shooter games in general, why they don't have like massive million versus million player maps and stuff, because like the performance just tanks. You got all those projectiles and stuff going off. Um, so I don't know. I gotta hop off of here, but just a short talk. Y'all have a